I'm in Seattle with my guy Robert. Man, good to see you again. You know, we working on this project. We out here in Seattle, man. I'm so happy to be able to sit down with you. I'm excited about it.
All right.
You're doing your thing out here in Seattle. It's really good to see you, man. I'm so happy to be in Seattle to sit down with you.
That's right.
Can you introduce yourself? You know, your bio is so extensive. Your work that you've done in the world has been so important. And so could you introduce yourself and share all of the great things you've done in your career, and then we'll get back to the real story.
Well, I'll keep it brief. I'm not, I'm a little shocked by the amount of information that you want me to put out there. But here's the deal. My name is Frederick. I was actually born in D.C., grew up in Atlanta, ended up at MIT and Georgia Tech, both of those, and came out here to Seattle after doing a startup. And that startup was acquired in 1999 by Amazon, and our 10-person team, after working on things that like Bluetooth before it was even called Bluetooth, working on intelligent agents, which now I guess you would consider Siri and Alexa are intelligent agents, and pervasive computing, which is a nerdy way of saying the things that you carry around with you being computers, and it's always on, always available. All of that was what was in that first startup. Amazon acquired it while they were doing, selling books and selling music and DVDs, and this was the new thing of actually understanding how people could interact with Amazon without having it be within a browser. That was literally the job that I came in. It was 10 of us. We came in like little ninjas. The name of the group was called Amazon Anywhere. And even to this day, almost 21 years later, that mantra has been sort of stuck with me. The mission statement was make it possible for anyone, anywhere, at any time to be able to access any Amazon service from any device. A whole bunch of any's, and that was Amazon Anywhere. And so took that to heart, made sure that that mission statement was understood by the entire team, bounced around the company to understand how to make that happen. And within the first month of the acquisition, we had people buying things from Palm Pilots. Do you remember
those?
Okay.
Yeah.
PDAs are what they were called. And within 6 months after that, people were buying things from their cell phones. Then from the US, we did Europe, then we did Asia, and then by the time we came back, we were trying to do things for cell phones, for PDAs, and we had actually started working on voice recognition. So by 2001, 2002 time period, we were already implementing and deploying voice-based browsing, just being able to shop with your voice, being able to find things with your voice, just dialing any phone number, and leveraging partnerships with mobile operators, mobile carriers, to make it possible for people who dial #121 on AT&T to actually shop the entire Amazon catalog just with their voice. And you could probably guess where that type of technology and those particular patents and IP went. Instead of having to use any device, I believe Amazon started building their own device, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and that was the Amazon stuff, but left Amazon late 2000s, did another startup that got acquired within 14 months, and then took everything that I knew and put it into building my own company. I ran that company 4 years profitable, and we had large Fortune 500 customers, and those particular customers led me to understand that we wanted to take the same things that we were doing for Amazon. I guess the main thing I'm known for is being the technical founder, co-founder of the Amazon Web Services program. I kind of skipped over that, but that's what everyone sort of knows at this point. But took that same concept and applied it to my own startup so that I could rebuild and build things on top of AWS, on top of cloud services, and give it to other companies. And that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years, is basically turning it from, I guess the best way to put it is enablement and empowerment as a service, or what we call ease. So a whole bunch of things that start with E. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do incubation, trying to help people from Seattle to Atlanta to Europe to Asia actually reach their dreams and have those particular dreams come to life using Sirqul, my company.
So this series, Atlanta Black Tech Mecca, you know, I traveled around the country wanting to connect the dots to some of the builders and some of the people who came before, and then bring you back to today. And I feel like you were one of the people who came before. You know, you got 40 patents, and you've built so much from a system side. But I want to know where did that come from? Like
where did it all start?
Where did it all start? Like where did your foundation come from? And I know it was in education. Okay. Let's go back and talk about your history and education and who planted those seeds.
Well, I've told you already, you know, my parents are my role models. My father is an electrical engineer. My mother is a registered nurse who started her own company back in 1980 during a time period in Georgia when a brown woman wasn't starting up her own agency to do the home health care. And she was doing it, and she was killing it pretty much in that particular industry. So, but to go back to the way it was and where it all started, it was my parents were in college when they had me. And we did not come from, you know, money. My parents struggled. Even talking now to my kids, having to explain like what it was like to not have, food, and to be worried about like being able to make it through the end of the week. It was tough, and that's what it was like. As I mentioned, Oxon Hill in Maryland. If for any of you guys who know where that is, that's where I grew up. It's not a very easy place to grow up, right off Oxon Hill Road. And my parents moved down to Georgia and became trailblazers of their own. I think back on it, I still think my parents had a sense of humor, because instead of staying in Atlanta, they said, we want to get you into the best schools, and we know that this area, or the areas that we would feel most welcome in, don't have those types of schools, so we're going to go out to the suburbs. And they chose Stone Mountain. And Stone Mountain during the 70s was not easy for a brown kid to be, there. I mean, you just have to remember my favorite story that I communicate on stage and to other people is moving into that home that my parents are still in now. And within the first day, having neighbors come and introduce themselves to us at the door and bring a pie. I always remember that pie where, it's handed to us. And they said, welcome to the neighborhood, but can you just make sure that you keep your kids at home? Because I don't want our kids to interact with your son.
Wow. That was Georgia.
That was Stone Mountain in the 70s. To actually have almost every one of our neighbors on multiple sides of our home, like move. I think now they call it white flight. Wow. To be one of the only African American kids or brown people to go to my elementary school. To basically wait a year and a half, almost 2 years, shout out to Jaja Johnson, to actually have other kids come to my school from the inner city through M to M. I literally had to be that first person in elementary school in my neighborhood. Going to the only church that that was around that my parents were basically welcomed in. It was a tough time period, and a lot of the kids that were in that particular neighborhood just didn't know. So instead of actually being outside and doing a lot of the things that all the other kids were doing, I was being told, come in, study, keep your mind on these things, because to be honest with you, it wasn't really all that safe.
Yeah.
I did have really close friends in the neighborhood growing up, but you have to remember what that time period was. It was around the time when a lot of brown boys were basically being found murdered.
Yeah.
And
very racist foundation.
Very tough
and your foundation was discipline, learning,
being stuck in books, because you don't know what's going to happen. Because I literally was a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Everyone, is talking about when I was young, I used to have to walk, uphill, when I was going to school or back home, both ways. But for me, it was, I had, in the 70s and in the 80s, I remember having dogs chase me.
Yeah.
I remember having, family and friends tell me, that I'm adopted. Right. And that, those can't be your parents because there's no way, because they're never here.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're just, I was at home. They're working. They had to work full time. They're building
a foundation for you. And so,
all sorts of crazy things happen. And the fun part is, to me, being able to hear from my parents to tell me, you can do anything that you put your mind to actually watching them struggle and deal with things at their own jobs, because they were also some of the only brown people at their jobs, to then turn around and actually achieve and to succeed and to get out of that type of environment, because literally that was what I had to do. Mm-hmm. And I knew even when I was a kid, maybe 12, 13, I literally said, I'm going to leave a mark, you know what I mean, on the world. I'm going to make sure that everyone knows who I am, and even if they don't know who I am, they're going to use something that I actually helped build. And now, after, watching, being part of an acquisition where Amazon brought me in, being able to report to the CIO, to travel with the CEO, to basically, I think there's a book coming out by Colin Breyer, who was one of the co-founders of AWS, of AWS specifically, to work with him to actually bring that idea to life was truly amazing. Yeah. And now I remember being in at Amazon at the time when people were like, that's going to be a dead project. That's not even going to go anywhere. That's someone's pet project that won't really amount to anything. To actually build a developer program that transforms that company, I call it like having an elephant charging, you know what I mean? And being able to steer it by the tail to actually turn it into something completely different than what it was originally. And to be able to have that impact, I think I've sort of achieved that. Yeah. I'm not going out there saying, I'm the guy, who made AWS, but I know that it was with a team. Yeah. I stood on the shoulders of giants, and I want to be able to make sure that for the same way that my parents fostered innovation, who drove me to file my first patent when I was 16, to basically push me to never be complacent, ever. Even today, I spoke to my mom just yesterday, and I told her I was coming to do this, and she's like, just preach, you know what I mean? And the main thing here is to be able to give that back, to be able to work with other entrepreneurs, to actually have a foundation that I'm starting to, cultivate in Atlanta. With other tech entrepreneurs and other people in the area, to have that Atlanta-Seattle connection, to be able to give back to the younger groups that are coming in now is just truly amazing. And especially when they come to find out that I had to go through the same stuff that they're going through, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But they know that they can come to me and talk to me and get insight. And understand what it's like to raise money, to grow a team, to actually, generate revenue, and then to also do it in a way that you're giving back to the community, right?
So do you think Georgia Tech gave you, a foundation to stand on? I think the education system of Georgia Tech, you came in early. What did that do to set the stage for MIT?
Oh, yeah, sure. So when I went to Georgia Tech, I was still a senior in high school. So
you was ahead of your class.
So the same way that I was, one of the trailblazers at my elementary school, I think we were joking about this before, it's called the level system. Georgia gives you tests when you're in the first grade, and you keep taking the test over and over and over again until they basically put you in a track, and that track can dictate where you're going to be when you graduate from high school. The problem with me was I came from Maryland, and so I was a little bit ahead, and my parents were pushing me on math. They weren't that great at English, but they were great at math. And so I kept taking the tests until they said to stop. They said, you're too immature to be able to go to the grade level
that you're passing to.
You're
reaching it.
And like I said before, the reason immature was a code, because as a skinny little, 6-year-old, I couldn't be up with, people that are in second or third grade. I was too immature. I already had to deal with words and names and taunting and bullying and things like that with kids my own age. I don't even know what I would have had to deal with, if I had to deal with, people who are older. So they said you can go to your math class a year ahead. And that's what happened. Okay. And that's what led to me to go from elementary school to middle school to high school, always being ahead, finishing my APs when I was a junior, and then applying to Georgia Tech when I was a senior. And I'll never forget some of my high school counselor. I'm not going to name her name, but because her son was also in my graduating class. But she kept saying, "Why do you keep reaching so high? Why are you not just happy? Just graduating from this school. Why do you have to always try to exceed?" I just had to deal with that kind of stuff, where even the teachers were trying to hold me back. Even all the way through middle school, all the way through high school. I mean, I love my high school, don't get me wrong, but I had experiences there. I'll even keep this timely and relevant. The high school just published an entire booklet of what it's like to be an African American alum, as well as a student from my high school, with stories from families and from people there. So I was able to actually go back in time recently to figure out exactly what it's like even still in Georgia, because it's hidden.
When you think about building that foundation in Georgia Tech, going to MIT, I know that, MIT, you was probably maybe 2 or 3 of you.
Yeah. Yeah, actually,
people of color. What was that like going to MIT, coming from Georgia? So
MIT was it wasn't just 2 or 3 of us. It was called the MITES program, I think, or MITER or MITES. So there were a lot of people, not a lot, but 20 or 30 of us.
Okay.
But out of 20 or 30, 3 of them came from my high school.
Okay.
So that tells you a little bit about Woodward. my high school that I went to. Being at Georgia Tech prepared for an entire year, prepared me for what it was going to be like at MIT, because at Georgia Tech, even though I went during the day and I came back to my high school and then played sports and things like that, I got a feeling of what it was like to not be taught,
Okay.
to have to be self-reliant in order to basically pass classes. A lot of kids and students have this transition from being taught in school to having to learn, if that makes sense, in college. And it's a major transition because you're in a much larger environment. The professors and the TAs, they might not necessarily care that much about you. They're more focused on their own research. But ultimately at MIT, instead of being the top or the best, you're now one of the best that makes up the whole class.
Okay.
So you can go from being the best in Georgia, where people are already thinking, you're not all that great because you come from the South, down to maybe average to below average, because every single person there was almost like a valedictorian or did amazing things. So you're just normal.
Yeah.
No scholarships, by the way.
No scholarships.
Zero scholarships.
Wow.
And literally, it was the only school that I got into where I didn't get a scholarship, but I decided to go anyway.
And excel.
So I worked.
Yeah, you worked.
I had to work. I had to go to school, and I couldn't always live in the dorms, so I had to find other places because it was too expensive. But I made it out, and I'm proud of it, of the fact that it took me 5 years, but I made it through, paid my way, didn't have any debt, after a few years, and I don't know how many people can basically say that.
So when did the entrepreneur bug hit you? Because you came out.
And it hit before I even went to college.
Wow.
I remember how I told you I tried to apply for a patent. I had
At 16.
At 16, I was selling the patented I played soccer, and it was a little device that I had made, and I was selling those at camps, at tournaments. I would travel around and build my business.
Your business as a young kid.
Yeah, I still have the same business. I still have the same name and everything.
Wow.
It's still registered in Georgia. I still do stuff with it. But the main thing is that business, that experience working with my mother while she was actually starting and expanding and understanding, and she's teaching me all of that stuff. That's what led to multiple, or for me to be a serial entrepreneur, to be an investor in other people's stuff, to actually want to incubate and bring success to people who look like me, who have just not had a chance yet, or had someone to basically say, I believe in you. And in the same way that my parents believed in me, the same way that the CEO of Amazon believed in me, and the ideas that we had, to various people who became investors in Sirqul, who believe in me as well.
So if you could go back to that 16-year-old self now, what would you tell that 16-year-old self from a business perspective?
From business perspective, you have to listen. You don't know everything, right? Experience is absolutely key, because right now, if I could have spent more time meeting more professors, leveraging more of my college experience, if I could have taken more business classes. I did take quite a few while I was in college, but and not just be focused on just engineering or just science. Those are the types of things that I would, tell my 16-year-old self. I would have told my 16-year-old self to actually not be so focused on sports as well, because I thought I got athletic scholarships too, not just academic.
Okay.
And it's not about athletics all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't have those. I only had my father.
Yeah, you didn't have the mentors and the people to mold you.
Everybody
about
else was athletic.
Yeah.
It was all about the sport.
Yeah.
Those were our role models.
Yeah, that was a role model.
The athletes.
Yeah, it wasn't Robert Smith.
I wish.
Yeah, it wasn't a leader in tech, and you're in tech, and a leader in tech that you could follow a model.
I'm gonna tell you one of the people I really want to meet. His name is Lonnie, and he's down in Atlanta, and he was a NASA engineer.
NASA, I know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I have literally been waiting to fly down to Atlanta for almost a year once I found out that we're connected somehow,
tech world.
In the tech world.
Yeah.
And I just want to be able to meet him because he actually got me through a lot of the things that I was doing. As an example.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just an amazing individual, and I've read up on him, and I'm on a phone call the other day, and I'm like, this is the guy that I really wanted to meet. And the person was like, I had dinner with him over at Mac's house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And they said, as soon as you come down here, we'll put the two of you together. So if Lonnie's listening, I can't wait to meet.
So these two worlds of Atlanta, Seattle, what made you make the transition to stay here? Like, why not Atlanta? Why not to go
business-wise or life-wise?
Business-wise.
Like family-wise?
Business-wise.
Okay, so business-wise, I'll tell you one thing. A lot of people don't realize this, but Seattle is everything about Silicon Valley that you hear, the TV shows, all the hype. Seattle has the same kind of stuff, the same kind of fostering community, but it's about collaboration. Mm-hmm. It's not about the sharks. It's because overall there's a little bit less money here.
Okay.
You can actually get more attention, more angel investors who believe in you.
Okay.
So the main thing is, I knew I was going to start up a business. Okay. I just didn't know when. I started, coming up with ideas even before I left Amazon. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know what social networking was, so I ended up working with a former MIT alum who, that's what I said before, we sold that company. And I got everything I needed to know in order to move to the next level. Okay. And when I was in Atlanta, in Norcross, Georgia, was where Peachtree Industrial, if you know where that is, we were isolated. Okay. We were in a warehouse, you know what I mean? And I'm still surprised that Amazon could find us, you know what I mean? So what ended up happening is Atlanta today is completely different than what Atlanta was back then. Okay. And I even still think that it hasn't even reached what it could be, because still we have there's this stuff that we talked about, which is this mentality that stays with our community of wanting to do things on our own. You know what I mean? Yeah. And not having to be told what to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And to be able to say that this is mine. Yeah. This is my idea. Yeah. And I'm coming back to Atlanta to say, here's what I have done. Yeah. Here's the millions I have raised. Yeah. Here is what I am willing to give to you guys so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. Right. Right? Here is a platform, a foundation for you to exceed and to excel in. And if you're capable, if you want, to actually win, and you're able to work with others who have experience, to actually listen and be guided, not to be told what to do, but to also give back your own perspective, then what you can do is you can create this circle, right? This community, this ecosystem of entrepreneurs, people who want to make a difference, who want to change the world. Yeah. That's what I want to do, and that's why we named the company Sirqul, even though it's spelled funny. Yeah. It means it's the community coming together, embracing, and actually winning.
Do you think if you was traditionally brought up in white America, you was white, and you came with your company and a great idea, do you think you would have had a different experience in going into business?
I'm laughing because here I'm gonna tell you a true story. There are not very many African American tech CEOs in Seattle. There are more now. I have a couple of people who are older than me who have guided me, told me, have advised me. I have advisors who I used to work with at different companies, right? One of them I'll introduce you to.
Okay.
Next time you come back. But the thing here is, in order to succeed in Seattle, I still had this mindset that I needed to have that white CEO, that white partner.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that, because when I walk into a room, instead of and this has happened as late as 2019, just at the beginning of 2020, when I go into a meeting and I go to introduce myself, people are looking at the other guys as the owner and the CEO of the company, and they're not realizing that I'm the actual founder. I'm the one that started the company. I just hired these guys, to help me out. Mm-hmm. And if that keeps happening, then it's going, or if we go all the way back to 2012 and 13 and those time periods, you just start to realize that it's still in your head that you need something. Yeah. Because even the people that you're interacting with are expecting it. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think I would have raised the amount of money that I was able to raise or have been as successful as I've been without a little bit of diversity within the C-level part of the company. It's a different game that you got to play just to even win completely, 100%. But that's not, nobody else has to do that. Nobody else has to do that. I mean, how many, think of it this way. In order to win the game, you have to play the game. Yeah. And then I had to go from not being the CEO of my own company to taking it back. Okay. And becoming the CEO. Okay. After we raised the first round of money, if that makes sense. Okay. We're in 2021. Why do you think we're so behind in the tech industry? Well, part of it is what I believe is that we don't have the role models. Okay. We don't have the infrastructure set up that a lot of other races and people have actually been doing for decades or generations. We are building now, especially in Atlanta, on top of what others have done before, but just recently. So if more people can watch these videos to find out that the things that power their electronics, the things that power their even companies, and were developed by, were created by, conceived by people that look like them, then hopefully by the time they get to be 18 and they're thinking about what they want to do for the rest of their life, they realize that they can do it. They can be that person. It's not just the athletes, it's not just the entertainers that are on the TV screen. It's people that are in the background, you know what I mean, that are doing things big and not necessarily explaining to everybody how great they are, you know what I mean? It's silently changing the world and actually doing good for their families. We've seen numerous, from my research, I've seen numerous great, black thinkers and founders and people who work for companies, but we haven't been able to break through. Why do you think we haven't been able to break through and create billion-dollar companies? Is it some type of black tax against us? So I mentioned this briefly before, and that is, in order to actually raise the money that I did for Sirqul, I had to play the game. I had a Caucasian, co-founder, and my other co-founder was Asian. And by actually having them in the room, getting me into the room, I was able to then convince the people across the table to even give me a shot. If I didn't actually have them, I don't think we would have actually raised anything close to the amount of money we've raised. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about Sirqul and the influence that we've had. I mean, we've been interacting with Siemens, with Intel, with Mercedes-Benz, with Amazon. We're able to do things on multiple continents, and mostly taking things that we do overseas and bringing it here. So literally, I have to go out of the country to raise money so that I could then bring it back and help enable our particular group, the people that look like me, the entrepreneurs that want to build things and change the world.
Why do you think, just from a personal perspective, just the raising of money is so difficult? The percentage is so small for black women and black men.
It's ridiculous.
And you've been in the game for a long time. What have you seen that you could say is systematic?
Systematically, it doesn't take, it's just one sentence or one thing. If I have money and there is someone that reminds me of myself when I was younger, I'm going to give them money. I come into a room, you come into a room, others come into a room. There's a different background. There's a whole different experience of what got them to that particular space to even present the idea. And if it's not that that people are interested, or if they are interested, they usually give far less, and they usually create terms that are really difficult to actually, to actually get past, or it's completely different for those people of color, especially if you're a woman of color, coming into the tech world. So it's systematically, even if it's just men versus women, you're going to get less.
So what would you say to a woman that is there now in 2021 and she's did the work?
Find us. Find people that we're here now. We weren't there before. Or even if we were, we didn't understand tech. They're out there. We're looking. We're trying to find. Give us a chance to actually help you. And you don't always have to go down the institutional route of people who don't understand your business or your values or where you're coming from, because we're here.
So Sirqul 2050.
2050.
You're a visionary. You're thinking in the future. Like
By then my company will be my son's company. What do you?
Yeah. So what your future is for that? Like what's the I was reading I was reading Amazon.
Bezos, yeah.
Thinking about 10 years down the road, and he has this new book that just came out. What are you thinking about down the road?
I'm thinking about augmented intelligence. And what augmented intelligence is it's the other AI. Artificial is trying to make a computer think like a human. Augmented intelligence is the next level, where you're actually have already thought like a human, and you're actually making the environment around the human better and easier to engage with. So you're making predictions, the systems are making recommendations, and it's just reacting to the presence of people. So at Sirqul, that's what we're trying to do now. But I think it will be on a whole nother level by 2050 for sure.
Okay. Me personally, I say we got to build more systems and be less of consumers in technology. And I say that we could build these companies that I see. Do you think we can build these companies? Because
absolutely.
I say it, and you've done it. Do you think we could build these companies to this magnitude?
So I literally was looking at a actual warehouse robotic device just the other day that was shared with me from a CEO, African American young CEO who is into robotics, autonomous devices that are doing things, in new ways. And just being able to know that this person is out there, that he is building these types of systems that are picking items off of shelves, without humans, and then zooming around the floor and then delivering it inside of a warehouse, that is truly amazing. And if you can actually take any of the capabilities or any of the concepts or experiences that people like me or others have had, and then build a business on top of it that is transformative, then we have done our job.
Okay.
And until that actually happens, until we can basically have a group of a whole new crop of tech entrepreneurs, female, young, people who have diverse backgrounds. It doesn't matter where they're coming from, whether they were middle class, upper middle class, lower class, I don't care. As long as we get more people that look like us, that are actually out there becoming the role models of the kids that are coming up today, and they're not the entertainers. I'm tired of, I'm not trying to say anything negative, but I'm just tired of the only mentors, and the only role models being entertainers.
Okay.
It's time to basically have the scientists, the engineers, the teachers, the people who are innovating, the inventors, to be those particular role models for the kids coming up today.
So taking black and white for me is normalizing a narrative. Mm-hmm. In closing, normalizing the narrative means that what would you say, what would you want to look normal? Like, what would be the narrative?
I don't want to have this kind of discussion in 2050. It's just, it just happens.
Yeah, it's just normal.
Like going back to Stone Mountain today. It's normal.
Yeah.
When I first got there, not normal.
Yeah. So it's a revolution happening in Atlanta.
Right.
And I look forward to seeing you as one of the leaders there.
Yeah.
And I came out to Seattle to sit with you, man. I'm very proud of you. I'm very inspired by you.
Sure.
You're building systems for a media person like myself. What advice would you give me?
Given the technology the way that it is now, anything is possible. As long as you get the following, as long as you put yourself out there, you can monetize what you're doing in ways that was not possible before. And all you have to do is just stick with it, make that content, because content is king, and he who owns the content owns the world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And because once you have something that people want, that they crave, they will spend money to get it.
Okay.
And you might not be now, but it could be a year from now, it could be 5 years from now, it could be 15 years from now. Once you have that piece of content and you have that voice and you have that presence, then it's all over. Then you can monetize. And you'll monetize forever.
Thank you so much, man. I ain't gonna keep you much longer. You have any final thoughts for the future for your kids?
Just hang in there, listen to your parents, and we all have done things. Forget the Amazon and the AWS and all that other stuff. Look at what your parents are able to do. You know what I mean? Look at just being able to, have the jobs to actually keep the roof over your heads. Mm-hmm. Look at what it takes to actually make that happen, and then turn around and make it happen for the next generation as well, right? Make it easier the next time around, so that by the 2050, as you put it, it's just normal. Mm-hmm. And that vision will come alive and will come to life.
Thank you so much, man, for your time, and we're going to continue to build our relationship, man. Sure. I'll be out in Seattle a lot, man. You opened the door. You wasn't hesitant at all to support what we were doing, and that meant a lot. Seattle embraced me from the beginning, mm-hmm. and I think because you made it so easy and so made me feel so comfortable as an entrepreneur or a storyteller that you wanted to help me, this is why this is happening right now. So I just want to keep that mentality to be a support for us, because a lot of us are coming up and we're not getting the support. We're not getting.
That's what I said.
We're not getting
exactly.
the. You know, it's a lot of people who said no, and a lot of people who wouldn't support or wouldn't help. So, you know, you being like religious upon, okay, I'm going to help you. We can use my office. We can do this. We can do that. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And I'll continue to, you know, listen to some of the things that you're teaching the world. And any way I can support you, I'm here for you, brother.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Frederick. I'm the CEO and founder of Sirqul Inc. I just want to put this out there that you can actually change the world no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what your education level. It's out there. As long as you have that particular drive, that desire, and you're willing to work hard, you can actually change the world and succeed and provide for not just you, but also your family, your community. Just give back. Just get to a position where, you know, even with just positive energy, you're able to actually turn around and, you know, make the world a better place. Just because you're trying hard yourself to make it a better place. Okay?
That's great. That's great.
All right, thank you.
That's a wrap.
All right, Robert, it's all you.